make them round. In fact, I like the ones I made the other day. They were round. I just took the cap off of something and use it as a template to make a round foot. But this, the foot I'm going to make here is my somewhat conventional foot that I always make. Unless you want to see something different. So then I got one, I always like to layer them into 2 layers. And then I'll cut another smaller square. Or 2. But then these will be a little bit smaller. I'm just going to eyeball these. I could measure them, but why? What fun is that? And then I'll go and slip these onto these. Like so.
Did you explain how you made the slip?
Yeah. Yeah, you have to take completely dry clay. That's essential. If you take wet clay, it will not dissolve. It'll just sit there like a lump in your water. No matter how long you let it sit there, it'll just be a lump of clay. Now I'm going to take these and I'm going to cut them diagonally, like so. And there's a pair of feet, and then I'll make another pair here. There we go. And then I'll score and slip these onto my box. Now this clay is somewhat wet, and the problem I've had with putting feet on too soon is the box will actually sag. In other words, the weight of the box will push, because the box itself is wet, it'll actually slump slightly on top of the feet. So, but I'm going to go ahead and, so just a warning, that's a possibility here. Maybe I'll push these in a little bit, so it's like tiered. There we go, now I got a tiered effect, as opposed to just lining it up at the edge. Now, one thing you may learn about me is I am not a perfectionist. I'm just as good as it needs to be with my approach to things. I think it's okay. I think it's good to be a perfectionist, but I'm just not. I say if it looks good, it is good.
But because you've had so many years of experience, your work does look perfect.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right?
Maybe the
Well,
knowledge
I always try to make it's not that I try to be sloppy. I always try to craft something well. But at the same time, I recognize when I do that, there's probably other things I can do to make them better, to make them even a little more perfect, but that I kind of omit. Well, I like the painterly painting. I like a little bit of mess in a piece, actually. So I've been making shoes out of clay, and my next pair of shoes are going to be really messy. Because I'm going to really allow my techniques. I've lost my rib already. So where do they go? There it is. See? Right behind the box. So I like what I call the hand of the artist to be part of the eventual piece. Like, for example, I prefer someone like Van Gogh over someone like Titian. I prefer an artist who's more painterly. A little messier. I love Jim Dine's work. Talk about mess. I like Giacometti's work because, again, he's not a perfectionist in the sense of making everything look real pristine and smooth. They made a movie out of the book. There was a book written about him called A Giacometti Portrait. They made a movie out of it recently.
Oh, did you see it?
I haven't seen it. No,
I think I saw a trailer for it. I wanted
Yeah.
to see it.
All right. So there it is so far. And again, it's not perfect, but it's close. It's good enough, I'll say. You know. So now if I cut a lid off of this, you know, I could do it straight across, or I could be wavy. It could be. I could cut the lid out of the center here. You know, I could cut the lid down here. What if I cut the whole top of the box comes off? So I can cut it down here. You know, so there's lots of choices I could make. But I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to let the box dry a little bit, so when I do cut the lid off, it won't mess it up. But there you go. There's making a box 101. Now let's say I wanted to put a handle on it. I might as well show you that, right? So I'll take some of my scraps, and again, there's any number of ways. Actually, what I did in my other class is I had all these little pieces I cut off for the corners like this. This is what I did for the other class, and the ladies loved it. My other class, I have like 6 older women, which is pretty typical of having a class during the day. You know, usually it's retired people who can make classes. So I just did this. I put all my scraps together like this. It was kind of cool. I kind of liked it. I'd never done this before. And then I took the rolling pin and rolled over it. So rolling pin, let's see. Maybe I won't use a rolling pin. I'll just flatten it out like this. I'll just take my ruler here. Or here, my rib. This is such a nice tool. So I'm just going to do this. I'm going to press them all together. I'll leave a little thicker in the middle, a little thinner around the edges like that. Push all the pieces in. And you see that could be my hair there. Kind of interesting. So you could call this sort of a juxtaposition or contrast between this really kind of formal right angles and this sort of more organic looking shape, right? You know, so you kind of have that. So contrast can be kind of interesting on a piece, right? So there you go. I like that. I think I'm going to go with it. And then I cut the lid off later. So I'll score and slip this on there. So there's basically box making 101. Does anyone have any questions about anything I said or did?
Do you think that could be like part of a foot?
Part of a foot?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You could.
Two pieces.
So in other words, on the bottom of the piece, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could make a foot this way too.
I like that.
See, now I can flip this off. I can take those feet off and do this on the
Split
bottom.
it in half,
You know. So I could do like that. Or I could go like that.
Oh, also, it doesn't matter the position you place it.
What's it?
Depending on like how you would cut it.
Right, right. I might cut it so it reflects the direction of the handle. The other thing I want to do is I should score the top a little bit. So I'm gonna, oh, it's already sticking on there, so good enough it is. So now if I glaze it later on, the glaze would also help seal pieces together. Look at that, it's lined up there. You know, push it over a little bit. So part of the skill that you're developing when you're making art is you're developing your eye. You know, looking at things. Does that look right? Does that look? Does that work? Is it lining up? Is it at the right angle? You know, you're always sort of looking for that optimum aesthetic effect. You know, I think. But that always goes back to the content of your work, depending on what your ideas are. Basically, art is not just about making pretty pictures, as you probably know. It really is about expressing ideas as well as making something visually engaging. So a lot of your choices, how it looks, will go back to what's your idea for the piece. What is it you're trying to express? You know, when Van Gogh painted a bunch of shoes, what was he thinking? Why did he paint a bunch of old, worn-out workman's boots? You know, what was he interested in? And of course, what we try to do is we try to figure that out from his paintings, looking at his paintings and looking at the result. We try to decide, well, what was he interested in? I mean, they were beautiful objects, these sort of worn-out old leather boots. At the same time, I think he was saying something about the people that wore them. It was about their, you know, these boots reflected the history and the character and the nature of the person who had them. You know, I think that ends up being part of his work too. I think he was interested in. He wasn't interested in the aristocracy. The people he painted were the common, everyday, ordinary folk, and that's what he was in. That's why I think he was interested in some old, worn-out boots. You know, so here we go. Okay, there's my box so far. All right, so now that you've seen how to make a box, you everyone ready for trying this out? So you saw what we need. You'll take some clay downstairs. There's some aprons down there now. The aprons, we'll try to use them and bring a board down with you. So you make your slabs, put them on the board, leave the aprons down there. And, all right. So